made a great restart, and he left the others well behind. Dan Clark, I think, has moved up into second place. Look at Will Power, they're scrabbling for grip on the outside line at turn 3.
Yeah, Dan Clark's actually really struggling right now, being the only driver on the dry sidewall tires. It's sort of a bad call. You can see he's got a sorry, I said dry sidewall, the dry compound tires. But he's got the red sidewall Bridgestone Potenzas, and he's going to be struggling in the grip here as we look back from the Graham Rahal car.
At least initially, but if Dan can be patient here, and if it doesn't rain anymore, I fancy in, well, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 or 8 laps, if the track then begins to dry, Dan could still be in a very good position, because all the other guys are going to have to come onto pit lane. Look at Graham Rahal there, taking a hugely wide line around turn 9 here, and into turn 10, turn 11. It's a very tricky corner. Look at the understeer he's getting there. He's really having to turn that steering wheel an awful lot to go around that corner, James.
He's having to be so patient on the throttle. This track, when it's wet, we're going to ride on board with Graham here and see if he's going to run wide here. You see he misses that concrete patch on the inside, the asphalt giving you so much more grip. This little kink, extremely slippery in wet weather. A lot of oversteer if you're a little bit too impatient on the throttle. Graham's doing a good job, but you can see the guys in front of him are pulling away. What's important to note is it's not raining too hard. The track's not too wet because the spray is not very much right now. This morning in the Atlantic race, it was impossible to see in front of you.
I think that's probably the most slippery corner on the racetrack right there in turn 3, isn't it? And of course, it's the end of the fastest part of the course.
It is. It's very difficult to get the car slowed down as Neil Johnny gets a little sideways. Will Power looking to capitalize into turn 6. Can't quite do it. Again, this corner, you have an incredible push. You're turning the front wheel the steering wheel as much as you can. The front wheels just are not giving you the grip that you want. And ooh, this is going to be a speculative call in the rain, as well as driving around the outside of the corners to try and keep the steering wheel as unturned as possible. You sometimes brake offline. The reason being is that when the rubber line that you normally see as Will Power's getting racy, the rubber line on the traditional braking line, when it gets wet, is extremely slippery, and so in the rain you sometimes break down the inside, but that can also be deemed blocking in certain situations. But Will Power makes a move down the inside, and I think he's going to make that stick.
Yes, he is indeed. And Neil Johnny admitted over the weekend that he was renowned in A1 GP and in GP2 for his blocking tactics, keep people behind you. When you can do that in Europe, you can't do it over here. And I think that time he certainly left the door open. This time, is he defending there from Sebastian Bourdais, or is he looking speculative to make a pass back again on Will Power?
It looks like Dan Clark has ended up in the wall, Jeremy. He was not quite patient enough on those slick tires. It was a really risky call from Team Menard USA to keep him out there on the dry weather tires, and as you can see, it has not paid off for Dan Clark.
That's a shame. Would that be the driver that makes the call on that decision, or would it be the team, James?
It's probably a combination of both. I mean, obviously, if Dan said that he thought he was unable to navigate the car around the track and the conditions were just undrivable with those tires, then it would have been his call to come in. So Dan obviously had some confidence that the track was going to dry out, because it has stopped raining, Jeremy. So if the sun were to come out, which it isn't right now, it would dry the track a bit quicker. But as we can see, Dan Clark walking away from his car, things did not work out for him.
It looks like your tire strategy may have worked in your favor, but you may have dodged a bullet with Champ Car officials a moment ago.
Well, we'll see. You know, I mean, those things happen. Every once in a while it helps to get a little lucky.
Did you instruct Neil to pull over and let Will go by?
No, we got a warning that wanted to make sure we weren't blocking, so we just made him aware that no blocking, we'll play it clean, and hopefully they'll return the favor if we need it.
All right, no harm, no foul that time.
And that was Mark Johnson, the team manager for the Red Bull car there of PKV Racing, car number 21 for Neil Johnny. Mark Johnson's been around this sport for a long time. He worked with Bobby Rahal's team for a few years. Prior to that, with the PPI Motorsports team of Cal Wells. He still lives in Southern California, which is where Cal Wells' PPI organization was based. Does Mark Johnson commutes to both, of course, to the races and to the team's shop in Indianapolis. Still under caution here, and as you say, James, it's drying out on most areas of the racetrack, but it's still very slippery down there in turn 3, so still under caution. And it is Ryan Diel for Pacific Coast Motorsports who leads in Toronto. So the car's coming round turn 6. Lap 46 they are on now. We've had just over 1 hour gone in the race, 43 minutes remaining, and You know, there's still a lot of strategy to be played out this afternoon, James, is there not?
There absolutely is, because although the track seems to be drying at this point, the clouds are not breaking, so there's still a huge potential for rain to come back later in this race. So there's going to be a lot of decisions and a lot of head scratching going on in pit lane, trying to determine what the best thing is to do. But right now, Ryan Dial out front doing a very, very good job keeping his car underneath him. Will Power running second, Neil Johnny up to third, Sebastian Bourdais, our series points leader, running fourth. Graham Rahal, after qualifying so disappointingly, has managed to dodge a few bullets and make himself up to fifth. Justin Wilson back to sixth after his early spin. Dornbos seventh, Pagenaud eighth after losing his wing on the first lap. Oriol Servia and Bruno Junqueira rounding out the top 10.
So if you want some even more excitement and knowledge of the Champ Car World Series, log on to www.champcar.ws and sign on for the race director system. That will allow you, give you multiple views and radio communications with the drivers, and lots more information as well, including live timing and scoring. Great action there to be found at champcar.ws and race director. In the meantime, we are still in Toronto. We are under caution one more time. It's Ryan Dial who leads from Will Power, and Will Power has made up several positions in these very, very treacherous conditions, and he's looking quite good now, right at this moment in time. He's ahead of Neil Johnny and then Sebastian Bourdais, who had taken over the lead from Oriol Servia right before that round of pit stops, but it's Will Power who's been on the move.
And if you think back to last week in Trumbull, Will Power, his car stalled on the grid. It was actually a wastegate problem with the turbo there that caused both the Team Australia cars to stall, and he obviously got restarted at the back, worked his way up through those tricky conditions, and did finish third. So if he had managed to start the race from his second grid spot, who knows, he might have been challenging Robert Dornbos for the win. So obviously Will Power loves these conditions and certainly not afraid to push the car.
No, indeed, he's not.
They've cleared that corner now. Not sure what they're going to say. You probably get one more, might get two more laps of yellow.
That was Phil Howard there, the team manager for the R Sport team. His two drivers, Alex Tagliani and Justin Wilson, both running around about the top 10. Toronto is one of the world's most environmentally friendly cities and has introduced a new method for organic waste disposal and recycling. So a lot of innovation going on here in Toronto, a lot of innovation by the teams here in terms of strategies in the Stuart Grand Prix of Toronto. We're a little bit over halfway through, 40 minutes remaining. It's Ryan Dial out in front, his first time in the lead of a Champ Car race. And it's great for Ryan. He came up, we talked about it before, in Formula Renault and Formula 3 in Europe. He came over here and raced in the Atlantic, was twice second in the championship, then had a ride just for one race in the Champ Car World Series right here in Toronto. Race summary there, 64 minutes gone, 41 minutes remaining. Made his debut right here 2 years ago for Dale Coyne Racing, did Ryan Dial. Unfortunately, didn't find a ride thereafter, so the last couple of years he's been racing with Pacific Coast Motorsports, initially in the American Le Mans Series where he drove a Chevrolet Corvette, and then last year in the Grand Am Series, but now is where he really wants to be, is in the Champ Car World Series. The PCM team stepping up this year, and for the very first time they're out in front, and Ryan has certainly acquitted himself extremely well in his very, very difficult conditions, James Hitchcock.
He certainly has. He's driving a phenomenal race at this point. They pulled that very, very clever tire strategy, put on the rain tires when it hadn't quite started raining yet, anticipating the rain to fall, and they were absolutely correct on that. So looking at the power to pass graphic here, Ryan Dial with only 29 seconds, just under half of his allotted 60 seconds left of his Cosworth power to pass. Will Power with 45, Neil Johnny 38, Bourdais 43, and Graham Rahal, he's not used his power to pass once yet. He will have lots to play with in the second half of this race.
And as you can see there, more spots of rain. So the rain coming down one more time, and just before, just a moment or two ago, Oriol Servia confirmed to his crew over the radio it's definitely too wet for slicks. As of course Dan Clark found out to his cost. He became the latest retirement, and it's good news for these guys. I think everybody's now on wet weather tires, and that's what you need for these conditions. And it seems as if you look at the radar screen, we're told there is more rain imminent. And you can say just certain parts of the track it appears to be raining right now, other parts not, but it's certainly as Oriel Service says, too wet for dries, and we hope wet enough for wet.
Green.
There is Phil Howard on the radio to this man, Justin Wilson. The green is out one more time, and Ryan DL later on board with Justin Wilson going down towards turn 1. That is Graham Rahal right ahead of him. That's the battle for 5th and 6th.
Very tight line from those last 2 cars in line there, Dornbos and Serbia, but Ryan Dial leads from Will Power. Will Power's been very strong, and Sebastian Bourdais is very close to Neil Johnny, potentially going to look for a move down into turn 3. He's going to have to back out a little bit of spray coming up from these cars.
And I'd be surprised if Johnny wasn't going to get a penalty. He was clearly to the inside of that white line going down towards turn 3, and Sebastian Bourdais was right behind it. That was definitely a case of defending his position rather than trying to make a move on anybody else. So I'm sure the race officials will have a look at that. They might give him a warning because these are certainly very, very difficult conditions. The drivers have a heck of a lot to think about, but Neil Johnny is going to have to be very, very careful.
But it's as we heard from the PKV team manager, he's already had 1 warning. Oh, as Ryan Dial gets a little bit of lockup there, nearly collects it into the wall, but great recovery there. So, as you say, Jeremy, Neil Johnny is definitely going to be investigated at this point. He's already had 1 warning with Will Power, and now he's done it again. Of course, he's going to argue he was just breaking offline for the sake of finding grip in these tricky conditions, but with that line rule that they've implemented for this race, it's going to be very hard to argue that case.
And the Scotsman Ryan Dial certainly has a lot of experience of driving in the rain in all his racing in Europe, both in Formula Renault and Formula 3, but these are so tricky now. So it's part rain, part dry, and just very, very treacherous surface with all these changes of surface, the asphalt, the concrete and everything else here, and the white lines, the famous white lines in the middle of the road. There's no grip at all on those parts, and there comes now down into turn 3. Johnny again. Well, this time he's certainly not defending his position necessarily. I'm sure he's trying to argue that that's now my racing line in the wet.
That's exactly what he's trying to do, Jeremy. He's trying to prove that he will race that line even when a car is not directly behind him. Still don't know if it's going to work. We're just going to have to see what race control decides on that one. But very tricky conditions, and the thing is it could start raining more, it could start raining less. So you either have to make sure you take into account more rain and go a bit slower, less rain, maybe start pushing a bit harder. So in these conditions, it's just so difficult to judge what the track is doing and what it's going to do. This is testing the drivers to the absolute limit.
Yeah, super driving once again from Brian DL. This is for a driver with such relatively little experience of these cars, is doing an excellent job in the lead and really under no pressure at all right now. Well, not intense, but Neil Johnny really gets that car sideways coming off turn 11, but Sebastian Bourdais not quite close enough to capitalize.
Yeah, you say, Jeremy, I mean, he's not only is he inexperienced with these cars and in this championship, the team, brand new, Pacific Coast Motorsports, this is their first year graduating up to the Champ Car World Series. Of course, they did run in Atlantic for a few years. Alex Figge was a driver of theirs, and of course, Ryan Dial was driving for the Sierra team, was rivals with Pacific Coast Motorsports, but now they have joined forces as Neil Johnny looks down the inside of Will Power, and this is getting to be a little bit interesting down here.
It certainly is, and I think Sebastian Bourdais is going to start to get fairly frustrated in a moment or two. We know he's not the most patient of characters. There's Graham Rahal looking at the inside of his teammate as well. So there at the front is a PCM car in the lead of Ryan DL, then the Team Australia car of Will Power. It seems to be raining once again there in turn 6, and that is one of the quicker corners on this track. It's very, very treacherous. Down to the inside there, once again it's Will Power just looking to the inside, but certainly not close enough to make a pass. But absolutely fascinating conditions. Graham Rahal has just overstepped the mark in turn 8. He is into the tyres. Is that going to bring out another full course yellow? Certainly not yet. And Graham might have dodged.
Coming in, guys.
Team radio. He's going to come in. Okay, there's a team radio.
Definitely has suspension damage there. He hit those tires fairly hard. Obviously, the wing is gone. As we see, one of the cars in front of him is pitting as well. Maybe trying to get a little bit of fuel in that car, get a stop done before a yellow comes out, if it does.
Yeah, if there was a full course yellow comes out one more time, then the pits are initially closed. So if you can make your pit stop before the yellow comes out, then you're good to go, and everybody else will have to come in. And when they rejoin after their pit stop, they would come out behind you. So pretty interesting strategy there. We've got 34 minutes to go, so I fancy now. But if you make a pit stop now, you can get to the end of the race without making another pit stop this afternoon. So that could be a very interesting strategy. I think it was. And who was it? Was it Tagliani that came onto the pit lane as well? I fancy it was, but you can see the new nose going on there for Graham Rahal. It's John Tuzanakis, the team manager's on the way. Cameron Steele.
Well, away clean, a little bit of chaos getting the nose on there. Well, you talked about it, working for Paul Tracy once before. We'll see if magic can happen for Graham Rahal. We know that magic happened for his dad here previously.
That's right, Bobby Rahal won back here on the first time the race was held on the streets of Toronto back in 1986. One of the longest running events on the schedule. Look at Sebastian Bourdais, so treacherous. Comes through turn 10 and 11 here onto the front straight. So, certainly from Raindrop says...
I feel very Rahal. I was just going to